Greene County had a busy weekend with its annual 50s Fest, and Waynesburg University held a suicide prevention event along with its Constitution Day play.
Stocks fall and inflation rises in the American economy while train operators speak out about workers' rights. All this and more right here on WCTV.
And now, your 5 o'clock news on Channel 14.
Hello and welcome back to WCTV's first episode of the 2022 fall semester. I'm Gwyneth Napier.
And I'm Rebecca Vaughn. Last week, Greene County held its annual 50s Fest on East High Street. Gwen Napier reports.
Offering a 50s fun for everybody, the 21st annual 50s Fest took place here on East High Street.
And whether you are in downtown Waynesburg and trying to teach your daughter how to do some swing dancing.
50s Fest is a wonderful day that just takes you back to the glorious days of the 1950s. We get to take over the town, take over High Street, park in front of the Greene County Courthouse, and the streets are lined with all kinds of classic cars, hot rods, any kind of car that you would want to see.
There sure was any car you'd want to see lining the street. In fact, some cars have been there longer than others.
First one was the second time, but I brought some pedal cars and a motorbike to the first one because I didn't have a car. I'd sold it. That I built this car 13 years ago, and that's it right there.
Not only were the streets full of cars, but also full of the sound of 50s music being played by Waynesburg's very own Crazy Dougie Wilson. If you missed this year's 50s Fest, don't be afraid to come out to the next year's 22nd annual. I'm Gwen Napier reporting for WCTV Channel 14 News. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and last week, Waynesburg University Counseling Center helped to spread awareness through a collection of different events. WCTV's Rebecca Vaughn has more.
Roughly 3% of college students in America attempted suicide within the last year. The Waynesburg University Counseling Center hoped to spread awareness of that number throughout their Suicide Prevention Week on campus. A display of 35 backpacks was laid out in Johnson Commons last Tuesday, representing the possible 3% of suicide attempts within the student body.
A lot of people pause and kind of do a double take because it is shocking. And we want it to be a little bit shocking to drum up some energy and attention throughout the week so that we get more engagement.
Throughout the week, resources and screenings were provided to the Waynesburg University student body to push for suicide awareness at the college age level. Suicide rates of college students have tripled since the 1950s and have continued to increase during the COVID-19 pandemic.
They've tripled over the years since COVID hit, which is really sad because, people were home, they were doing school online, they couldn't see their friends at college, so it was just like an isolation thing that goes on. So we want to spread awareness of that and help lower those numbers over the years.
While raising awareness, the Counseling Center also called on the students to be trained in suicide prevention techniques.
So the idea is that we train these students in QPR, which is a suicide prevention technique. It's evidence-based, which I am trained to provide that. And then we also hope to kind of provide some other trainings and collect a group of about 5 to 10 students that could serve as kind of resource hubs on campus.
Reporting on the campus of Waynesburg University for Channel 14 News, I'm Rebecca Vaughn.
The Counseling Center is also currently running a series called Normalizing Failure on their Instagram page, so be sure to keep an eye out for that.
The SAB hosted auditions for Woo Idol on Tuesday and Wednesday last week in the GPAC. Performers could choose their own selections for the initial auditions and covered songs ranging from You Belong With Me to It's a Man's World. Moving forward, singers will have to be prepared to sing songs in specific themes. The next performance is scheduled for September 23rd in the GPAC.
The start of a new semester means the perfect time to revisit Waynesburg's mission, according to President Lee. Leith spoke in chapel on September 6th, and his message was titled, A Most Important Question. Leith spoke about reasons for being a Christian and spoke about his personal journey from a college student to president. The next speaker at chapel on Tuesday is Samuel London, assistant head coach for Waynesburg's football team.
Campus events are fully underway as we get deeper into the fall semester. Last week, singer-songwriter Matt Skye performed at SAB's first coffee house of the semester. Later in the week, the Center for Service Leadership held its annual service fair in Johnson Commons as a way to connect students with service opportunities in the community. Events this week include Ultimate Frisbee at John F. Wiley Stadium on Sunday, an art show on Monday, and a bingo night on Wednesday.
And today, the Waynesburg University Stover Scholars debuted their Constitution Day play in the GPAC. The play portrays the Supreme Court case McCulloch versus Maryland, a lawsuit from 1819 that explores states' rights and the idea of a national bank. The movie was written by a committee of Stover scholars consisting of Ethan Lone, Elliot Kimball, Rebecca Schenk, and Kimberly Trump. That's all we have for campus and local news. When we come back, we'll have news from around the nation.
This is producer Caleb Yager, and you are watching The Buzz.
Welcome back. You're watching the weekly newscast on Channel 14. A final farewell to a queen who served her country for more than 70 years. Crowds lined up for miles to watch Queen Elizabeth II's coffin arrive at Westminster Hall in London. There she will lie in state until her funeral on Monday. Isabel Rosales is in London with details on the funeral procession and how world leaders and the UK people are remembering the late Queen.
Draped in a wreath of flowers, Queen Elizabeth II's coffin made its final journey to Westminster Hall Wednesday, where the late Queen will lie in state until her funeral on Monday. The funeral procession led by King Charles III and surrounded by military personnel. Behind the king, his siblings, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and the king's two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. A somber moment for this family and the entire United Kingdom. Crowds stretched for miles around London, some people sleeping on the streets overnight, just to ensure they could say a final farewell to a queen who served her people for more than 70 years.
It's the one thing I really want to do, to come and pay my last respects.
Among those paying their respects, dozens of world leaders.
This has obviously been a shock to everybody. This is, going to be a memory that will stand with them and with us watching it for forever. 70 years of service is exceptional to any person's life.
A moment of grief for the UK, rippling across the globe.
A sense of gratitude for the contribution that she had made in providing all that steadiness and sense of stillness in the middle of a very troubled and speedy world.
Just one day after August's disappointing consumer price index report triggered a meltdown on Wall Street, a separate inflation report indicates that wholesale price increases are showing signs of improvement, but now a potential nationwide rail strike could cause more problems for the U.S. economy. Chris Wynn has the latest from Washington.
A looming nationwide freight rail strike is getting closer to reality as negotiations continue in Washington.
You look at the fundamental infrastructure of the country, that affects everyone, and people tend to take it for granted.
Two rail unions representing about 60,000 engineers and conductors who make up the two-person crews on each train say scheduling rules that keep them on call virtually every day they're not at work, as well as a staffing shortage, are making their work lives intolerable. But the Association of American Railroads trade group says the union scheduling demands should be dealt with locally and not through national bargaining.
We have supply chain problems already. The ports are clogged. You throw in a rail strike and tens of thousands of containers can't get to where they want to go. That affects stores and our everyday lives.
About 30% of the nation's freight moves by rail, so a strike could be a crippling blow to the U.S. economy. Without freight railroads, oil refineries would have trouble producing their current volumes of gasoline, which could send prices higher. A strike could also disrupt the nation's food supply, preventing recently harvested crops from moving to food processors and disrupting the supply of fertilizer needed for upcoming plantings. And there could be negative impacts on the import of goods for the holiday shopping season, causing shortages and higher prices.
We have made crystal clear to the interested parties the harm that American families, businesses, and farmers and communities would experience if they were not to reach a resolution.
A strike could begin as early as Friday. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn.
President Joe Biden plans to nominate a new ambassador to Russia soon. According to 3 sources familiar with the matter, the next nominee for Russian ambassador is Lynn Tracy. Tracy speaks Russian and was the #2 diplomat in Moscow from 2014 to 2017. She is currently serving as ambassador to Armenia and has been in that position since 2019. The timing of Tracy's official nomination will depend on Russia agreeing to accept her as ambassador. Typically, the host country will approve the name of an ambassador pick before they are officially nominated. 2 sources said the U.S. has already begun that process. Tracy would replace John Sullivan, who stepped down earlier this month due to his wife being seriously ill.
A study finds extreme weather events are behind a spike in power outages over more than 2 decades. The analysis was by Climate Central, a nonprofit research organization. The rise comes as extreme weather gets worse amid the rise in global temperatures. The demand for electricity climbs, and the country's energy infrastructure gets older and more vulnerable. The analysis found from 2000 to 2021, 83% of all reported power outages were caused by a weather-related event. Such events range from drought-fueled wildfires to damaging storms such as tornadoes and hurricanes, many of which will only intensify as the climate warms. Climate Central found Texas reported the largest number of weather-related outages since 2000. It was followed by Michigan, California, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he won't commit to giving Senator Lindsey Graham's 15-week abortion ban bill a vote if the Republicans retake the Senate in the midterms. However, he would not rule out scheduling a vote. McConnell said Republican senators have their own opinions on the issue, and they may be different in different states.
But in terms of scheduling, I think most of the members of my conference prefer that this be dealt with at the state level.
Senator Graham introduced a bill on Tuesday that would ban abortions nationwide after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The proposal comes 3 months after the Supreme Court overruled Roe v. Wade.
Pope Francis is calling for peace during a 3-day visit to Kazakhstan this week. The president of Kazakhstan was in attendance alongside the Pope at a welcome ceremony Tuesday. The 85-year-old Pope was in a wheelchair some of the time due to a knee injury. During the Pope's visit to the Central Asian nation, he'll meet with civil and religious leaders and address the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions. About 50 countries are expected to be represented at the event. Some of the conversations will be focused on urging an end to the war in Ukraine. The goal of the Pope's visit is said to be a search for peace between different religions and cultures. That's all we have for national news. When we come back, Aaron Lang will give you your business and entertainment update. But first, Brock Owens is outside with a quick look at your weather. Brock?
We have beautiful weather today. It's the mid-70s. There's a few clouds in the sky, but there's no rain. And that trend is going to continue over the next couple of days. Stay tuned for the end of the newscast because you're going to want to hear the 7-day forecast.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back. I'm Erin Lang with your business and entertainment update. Disappointing numbers today after the Bureau of Labor Statistics released data showing annual inflation is slowing, but not nearly as much as economics had predicted. On a monthly basis, prices for goods and services continued to increase, despite the decline in gas prices. For many Americans on a tight budget, the numbers mean there is little relief on the horizon as the FED prepares for the possibility of rising rates yet again next week. Gloria Pazimo breaks down the numbers.
Annual inflation is cooling off, but not nearly fast enough.
Inflation continues to actually increase. That's a problem.
Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics released Tuesday show inflation cooled off in August for a second straight month, but remained high. On a monthly basis, consumer prices rose 0.1% from July.
Food, fuel, and housing. That's the sweet spot of the American consumer, and that's how they understand this.
Despite falling gas prices, the cost of rent, healthcare, food, and other goods continue to increase. That's affecting Americans with not much wiggle room in their budgets.
I buy a lot of fruits and vegetables, and I'm not buying them because they're just too expensive.
The Consumer Price Index, which measures the cost of goods and services, was up 8.3% from a year earlier compared to 8.5% in July. After stripping out more volatile categories like food and fuel, the month-on-month gain was higher than expected. The numbers suggest a sustainable slowdown may not be on the horizon. That's bad news for the Federal Reserve, which is trying to slow down the economy by raising interest rates.
My sense here is that they're going to lift the policy rate to 4% or greater before they entertain any idea of pausing.
On Wall Street, the report making investors jittery as the less than stellar numbers weigh down optimism and trigger a drop in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. In New York, I'm Gloria Pasmino reporting.
Stocks closed higher Wednesday after a disastrous session Tuesday. On Tuesday, the DOW dropped 1,200 points on the worst day since June of 2020. It was fueled by Consumer Price Index report showing continued inflation, which dashed hopes for the Federal Reserve might ease its aggressive interest rate hikes. Wednesday's volatile session was helped into the green by a rebound in oil prices. The FED is set to announce whether it will raise interest rates again next week. Today in entertainment news, an epic movie about a legendary Tinseltown era and a major change in a long-running soap opera. Here's David Daniel with the Hollywood Minute.
When I first moved to LA, signs on all the doors said, "No actors or dogs allowed." I changed that.
Here's your first look at Babylon, about the decadence and dreams of 1920s Hollywood. Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie lead the ensemble cast of the drama from La La Land writer-director Damien Chazelle. Babylon opens in limited release December 25th and in wide release January 6th.
Just because Orpheus has said that he's won doesn't mean that he has won.
After 57 years on broadcast television, the iconic soap opera Days of Our Lives has moved to streaming. Deidre Hall, who's starred on the show for more than 40 years, says the switch won't affect the content.
It doesn't change anything for us at work. We go to have the same dressing rooms and the same stages, blah, blah, blah. It's changing for the fans and where they find it.
Fans can now find current and previous episodes of Days on Peacock. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
Singer and songwriter R. Kelly has been convicted multiple times of child pornography charges at the Chicago federal trial and acquitted of others. The jury found Kelly guilty of 3 out of 4 child pornography accounts and acquitted him of conspiring to obstruct justice at his 2008 trial. He was also convicted on 3 out of 5 counts of enticement of a minor to engage in criminal sexual activity. The recording artist's attorney said her client felt prosecutors had overblown their case and had, quote, a sense of relief, unquote, that the case is behind.
We're not celebrating a win entirely, but we are happy that the jury really did look at each count. And as I said in my closing arguments, each count counts. They did their job, and we ended up with 7 not guilty counts in a 13 count, right? 7?
Yeah.
7 not guilty counts in a 13 count indictment.
Kelly's 3-week trial included testimony from 1 of 5 women prosecutors, and sexually abused as minors in the late 90s, making explicit videos with 4 of them. R. Kelly's attorney said she is considering appealing the convictions. That's all for business and entertainment news. When we come back, Caleb Yager will give his update on sports news.
Hello, I'm Caleb Yager, and this is your Waynesburg Sports Update here on Channel 14. After last Saturday's contest, the Waynesburg University football team dropped to 1-1 on the season after the 45-31 loss to the Case Western Reserve Spartans. It is important to note that even though Case Western's football program is in the President's Athletic Conference, this particular matchup was not counted as a conference game. Now, to tell you about the story, here's Seth Evans.
Waynesburg University won their first season opener 7 years last week in D.C., and with high expectations after a dominating victory against Gallaudet, the Jackets look to repeat the same thing this week when they hosted the visiting Case Western Reserve Spartans. Unlike last week, however, where Waynesburg was able to open up with a 21-7 lead heading into the second half, Case Western went into the half with the upper hand, going in with a 21-3 lead that can be attributed to constant pressure on Waynesburg quarterback Tyler Raines, as well as great red zone play and great improvisation from Case Western signal caller Drew Saxton. Despite the hole that the Jackets faced, it was evident that it could have been far worse if it wasn't for the sure defense from Coach Coleman's unit, which is led by a number of young playmakers, two of note being sophomores Javion Smith and James Davis, who were seen playing superb defense on the boundary and the flat, with the former being recognized by Coleman during the time with the first-year head coach.
I mean, Javion is a young man who, ever since the spring, has gotten better session by session. And what I mean session by session, I mean in the weight room, in the classroom, on the practice field.
Despite the offensive turnaround in the second half, as Waynesburg outscored the Spartans 28-7, excluding a last-second touchdown with 9 seconds left, Case Western did enough to hang on to the lead, in dropping the Jackets to 1-1 the season thus far. The Jackets will be back at work this week preparing for the second straight home game against another PAC rival in Geneva. The game will be set for a 1 p.m. kickoff and can be caught online at the Waynesburg University Sports Network. For WCTV, I'm Seth Evans.
Waynesburg takes on Geneva College at John F. Wiley Stadium this upcoming Saturday. You can catch the game on the Waynesburg University Sports Network, where Jeremiah Miller and Joe Venzel will be calling the action. Kickoff against the Golden Tornadoes is at 1 p.m. Now, the women's soccer team was defeated 2 nights ago by the Pitt Greensburg Bobcats 2-0. Freshman forward Megan Hickey scored both goals at the start of each half as the Bobcats controlled the pitch all night offensively. UPG outshot Waynesburg 18-7. But the Yellow Jackets are looking to bounce back when they take on the Yellow Jackets of Baldwin-Wallace University this Saturday night at home starting at 8 o'clock. The men's soccer team last night also took on the Pitt Greensburg Bobcats after ending with a 1-1 draw against Defiance College. Well, the same result took place here. The Bobcats struck first, but then freshman Taylor McFarland knotted things up in the first half, and that was all the scoring which would take place. Next up, also Baldwin-Wallace, just like the women's team at John F. Wiley Stadium on Saturday, but they start at 6 p.m., which is game 1 of the doubleheader. Yesterday, the Waynesburg University esports team participated in a League of Legends activation featuring opponents Washington University in St. Louis and Buena Vista. Last week for the Rocket League activation, Waynesburg won 3-0 against the University of Windsor and a 3-2 win against the University of Houston. Many more activations are to come, as tomorrow features Rocket League and Super Smash Bros. The Waynesburg University volleyball team got its first victory this past Saturday against Penn State Greater Allegheny by a final of 3-1, but dropped a 3-0 contest on the road at LaRoche University on Tuesday night. For the Red Hawks, fifth-year student Bethany Nulf led the match in kills with 9. Senior Kaylor Stohan for the Yellow Jackets led Waynesburg with 3 kills. Tonight, the squad faces Pitt Greensburg at the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse at 7 o'clock. Some other upcoming events: women's tennis takes on LaRoche University tomorrow at 4 p.m. Men's and women's golf travels to the Newcastle Country Club on Saturday to face Westminster College at noon. And that's the latest for Waynesburg sports. Stay tuned for the weather forecast with Brock Owens coming up here next on Channel 14.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies, like Frozen, or TV shows, like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing, though. Take a trip to the second floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
Hey, I'm Brock Owens, and this is your 7-day weather forecast. Today's high was 75 degrees, and tonight the temperature will fall to 51 degrees with no precipitation, which is something you'll be hearing quite a lot in this forecast. Tomorrow there will be no rain with a high of 79 and a low of 56 degrees. The weekend looks to have beautiful weather as well. Saturday the high is 82 and the low is 60, and Sunday the high is 81 and the low is 61, and no rainfall on either day. Looking into next week, Monday looks to have an 83-degree high and 63-degree low, and there is a little bit of a chance of precipitation, but it's still not likely. And the chance of precipitation is still the same on Tuesday, and so is the high temperature at 84 degrees with a low at 60. And next Wednesday should once again have a clear and sunny sky as the temperature goes up a little bit to 87 degrees and the low is at 59 degrees. All I know is this 7-day forecast isn't raining on my parade because I couldn't be much happier with this weather.
How about that weather? We don't get that very much at Waynesburg, so walking to class will be very, very nice.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have a nice calm week of weather. Don't have to worry about the rain. We get that a lot down here in western Pennsylvania, but I'm excited to see the sun and have some nice weather. How about you guys?
Yeah, and we're going to be slowly making our way into the fall season, so we get to break out all the sweatshirts and the sweaters. So.
Oh, I can't wait. I love wearing long sleeves, I'm not going to lie.
I know, my fall wardrobe is so ready, but unfortunately, that is all the time we have for you here today. Thank you so much for joining us here for your weekly newscast on WCTV.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.